Stand Up.
Hello there, and welcome to a special weekend edition of Stand Up, where I don't have any news rundown or clips for you. It's just my conversation with the talented, thoughtful, hilarious, righteous, very kind and generous actor, artist, commentator, activist, I'll call him, Jon Cryer, who's also produced a new podcast that I'll tell you about. That is who I've got for you today. We caught up late last week, and it was awesome. I've interviewed him once before when I was at SiriusXM. I forget exactly what he was promoting, but we follow each other on Twitter and other social media platforms, I guess, for a long time and have exchanged pleasantries and DMs from time to time. So I said, I'd love to talk to you in a podcast conversation, and he said it was the best opportunity anybody had ever offered him. And I mean, that's crazy because he's had quite a career, but he's very generous. And we had an awesome conversation. I think you're going to love here on a weekend. We talked about our hair loss and what it's like for even a celebrity like him to be starstruck, and what it's like to be an actor with opinions in the world of social media. Can you get work as a conservative actor? His thoughts on actor Kevin Sorbo, which may surprise. And more importantly, he just impressed me with his knowledge of history and social movements and his ability to talk about it all. He's clearly a guy who cares about other people, who he's never met, who he never will meet, and just a real smart, funny, passionate guy. I think we had a great conversation. I love this talk. I hope that you'll let him know on Twitter that you heard it, and I hope that you'll check out this very interesting new podcast, which I'll give you a preview of after our conversation. I've got a 2-minute audio preview of The Man Who Calculated Death that Jon Cryer is producing. This is about a friend of his, investigating her own family's Nazi past. The Man Who Calculated Death coming out exclusively on Wondery Plus just a couple days after the election. So I highly recommend that. I'll link to it in the show notes. And now, my conversation with Jon Cryer. Very cool. OMG, look who it is.
What?
Amazing. Jon Cryer, the one and only.
Jon Cryer, although you could be looking in a mirror. If I had cooler green eyes, maybe. Yeah.
Well, you have always given me, we're white bald guys for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
We really need to create that group. But you've always given me hope that I'm better looking than I am because of your career success in television and film. And if I look like you, I must be good looking too.
Yes, that is the way that it works. And us and Paul Scheer, we need to get together with. And there's a whole, a very select group.
When did you start losing your hair? I mean, you had an amazing career as with this face and head. So
with a lot of hair when I was younger.
Yeah.
I started losing it right around when I started doing 2.5 Men. And my hair person was a guy named Ralph Avalos, who, God bless him, fought for every strand of hair on my head. I mean, and he used just a battery of, he used that stuff that's like boot black on the top of my head, and then the spray stuff.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then some sprinkle-in stuff. And we did that battle for 12 years while I did 2.5 Men. And finally, when the show was over, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done fighting that war. And I love it. I'm really, I just, my favorite thing about it is I don't have to worry when it rains. You just go out. Who cares if you get wet? Who cares? There's nothing to mess up.
Yeah, it's very low maintenance. The biggest expense is razors. If you use a straight razor on it, you gotta use those. But I'm with you, loving it and enjoying it. But it's hard. People don't know the struggle of a man losing his hair. I mean, it can be hard, especially if you're on TV and on stage.
Yes,
and stuff.
I took Propecia and Minoxidil and everything, and you try everything. And also my hair, you get really self-conscious. Like if you're ever out in public with, like I used to go to the farmer's market and there'd be paparazzi photos of me with just these awful patchy, cause there was huge patches of hair missing, and you get self-conscious about it after a while. It's like, yeah, that's me. And I'd love to be totally cool with who I am, but I'm not.
Well, nobody is. Nobody is. You're a human being. And one thing I love about you is how human you are, how relatable you are, how down to earth you've always been, including with me in this moment. And it's like I'm looking at your Twitter timeline. I'm a huge fan of you on social media, of course. And it's like your pinned tweet is something about Mark Hamill and Henry Winkler wishing you a happy birthday. And you're like, This is amazing. That's how I feel talking to you. You understand what it's like to love other well-known people for different reasons. So how do you describe that feeling, being a very well-known celebrity, most of your career, probably at this point, most of your life, and yet still looking up to other people and getting starstruck yourself? You must have that from time to time.
I get starstruck all the time. I that's one of the things I love about the business is that you meet people that you never thought you would ever have any possible interaction with. I mean, I've now had the opportunity to not only meet Mark Hamill, but really converse with him and talk with him about a lot of the stuff that's going on. That's great for me. But like when I first got into the business, I loved that I got to meet Gene Kelly, and I got to meet and I had this crazy thing happen. I was at a benefit, and I was talking to this woman across the table, and she was and I was like, "Is this lady flirting with me?" I was okay. Well, I was single at the time. I was like, okay, but she was like, looking like mid-60s. But I was like in my mid-20s, like, okay, I'll do a May-December thing, no problem. But she's really charming and funny and just cute, just really a very attractive lady. And at the end of the night, I finally said, "This is embarrassing, but I don't actually know. We've not introduced ourselves. I'm Jon Cryer." And she said, "Oh, I'm Shirley Temple."
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, how long?
And you guys, it's well known that you dated her in your 20s for 6 months.
So lovely.
Wow. Well, it's funny because when we're talking historically, traditionally, celebrities have been kind of, at least us growing up, athletes and actors. But now it feels like a lot of celebrities are kind of activists, people, pundits and commentators. My friend Glenn Kirshner has like a huge celebrity following. And I know that you have helped elevate a lot of those voices. So who is it that you like? I mean, don't you feel that way that we felt about actors and athletes growing up, about certain people in that are working in government, that are activists, which you're an activist.
I'm a reluctant activist. I just want to entertain people. I don't love knowing too much about the actors that I see. It's like I don't need to know it. They're actors. They're performing. They're having a great time. I'm having a great time. Why sully this by knowing how they think and feel? Right. But the ones I've admired, like I love Bradley Whitford. I think he's hilarious and incredibly smart. Sure. Obviously, Mark Hamill is very outspoken. George Clooney, I think, is very articulate about things. There's and some of the people that have been, like Martha Plimpton, I think is a fantastic advocate for women's reproductive care. And, there's a lot of, and the thing about, there's a lot of anger thrown at actors who become political, a lot of stay in your lane. Hey, and I get it because, we've developed a following and a name for our art. So people feel like, well, it's not even, on social media, it's not fair somehow. But by the same token, I'm an American. I care about this stuff. I care about, I'm not a Trump supporter. I strongly disagree with him, but I care about Trump supporters. I try to ignore the invective that is hurled at me online. Because, by the way, we don't know how much of that is even real.
Right. They could be bots and Russians and just farms. I wanted to ask you about that because when you put yourself out there the way that you have, you get all kinds of things about your career or your sexuality.
Oh, yes.
Every man gets something about our sexuality. Like it's a put down if someone says you're gay. I'm like, whatever you think, it doesn't bother me. But you're not in my case, you're not funny. You're not a successful comedian. Yes. In your case, what work you're doing or aren't doing, does any of that ever affect you? Because
it doesn't. It's the easiest insult. No, the easiest insult is my name. Yeah. They invariably like, cry harder. Your boy sure seems like his name. It's like I haven't heard that since junior high.
Right.
So no, none of that means anything to me. Nobody, those are the easiest insults, and they're ridiculous, and they're easy to ignore. At the same token, and I was like, wait, can you please decide? Am I gay? Am I beta? Am I a cuck? Am I a pedo? Which just pick, or am all of them? So I'd be a gay person who's also getting fooled around on, and a pedophile getting fooled around on by The children that I'm in love with? I'm trying to figure out,
that's you.
what this is exactly.
I'm just a beta. I don't like being called a pedophile, but I'll own beta cuck.
I will proudly own beta. I was going to call I wrote a book years ago, and I was like, I'm a proudly effeminate dork. I've always been, people have always thought I was gay. That's, was always a part of my life, and that's fine. My very first roles were in like Torch Song Trilogy, which is a very famous play about a gay man. And the gay community has been amazing to me. So God forbid I should be thought of as this amazing community.
If anybody was going to be gay, it would be someone like you that grew up in a family like yours. And I bring it up because people are constantly talking about how in my district, I'm very active in the school board, that the teachers are teaching kids to be less manly or trans or gay. And it's not a thing that could be taught. If it could be taught, you would have gone that way probably because you were embraced by, the theater community growing up, your family and so on, right? I mean, like living in New York, it's not like living in other parts of the country where your parents are working, I don't know, on the assembly line at Ford. Where no one's.
Yes, I was certainly exposed to a lot of gay culture in New York growing up. But for me, I was always baffled by masculinity. That was my thing. It always seemed like I like sports. I never understood. Having to be dominant over people. That's not me. I get, there's people who are like that, fine with them, but it's just wasn't the path of my life in particular.
The fact that it's a value judgment is what's strange about it. Like, I don't care what you are on that spectrum. That's not something I care about. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, strongman fascism that has arisen since the rise of Mussolini, and I'm sure it existed before that, just in a different form. Our modern understanding of fascism was really established by Mussolini and his culture. And it's interesting because Trump is still echoing so much of his rhetoric at this point. But it's
behavior and the makeup and the costumes, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's being Putin going shirtless, and it is these outward manifestations of masculinity. The idea is that a strong man leader is what is necessary to cut through all this bureaucratic intellectualism and red tape and really make a wonderful capitalist society for everybody. That sort of undergirds everything that he says.
Yeah, well said. How untraditional of a man are you? Can you fix broken things in your home? Do you even attempt it?
I do fix broken things in my home. I'm excellent. I have a 3D printer. So what's funny is instead of just like buying a replacement part, I'll like design one and build it, which takes a month and a half and wastes enormous amounts of resources.
Really? Oh, that's.
And, my 3D printer prints so many things just wrong. It just makes so many mistakes, that it is absolutely a hobbyist bit of stupidity on my part. I'm like, no, wait, I can do that. I can make it. And it's like, no, why don't we just buy it? How about that?
All right, so you can do some stuff.
Yeah.
I just changed spark plugs on a car, and I felt like a very big deal. But YouTube allows you to do anything now.
Yes.
So there should be no excuses. I guess when I thought about, getting the opportunity to talk with you, I was like, well, what has he been asked 1,000 times that he doesn't want to answer? And obviously career stuff came up. But this came up too, but I'm still going to ask it. Just in terms of the entertainment industry and specifically why people tend to have certain views other than others. You hear from a lot of kind of conservative actors in the entertainment industry that Hollywood, the entertainment industry, is hostile towards their views. How do you see it? Because I could totally understand in the entertainment industry, which I spent a lot of time, being involved in as a comedian and elsewhere, you're a dime a dozen. So if there's two people that are great, super talented, but one person, has views that are, say anti-gay or they're super racist or even slightly, I'm not giving him the part. Do you feel like work comes down to your views? I would say it's that case in a lot of ways in a lot of different industries these days. If you're a fascist and I know it, I probably am not going to give you the internship. But how do you think about how your work or how your industry is affected by today's political divisiveness? Do you have views on it?
I'm torn because, like I said, I don't. There's lots of artists that I know are conservative. whose work I still enjoy and I want to continue enjoying. Kelsey Grammer's very conservative, and I think he's a masterful sitcom actor. I'm not going to deny myself enjoying episodes of Frasier because I disagree profoundly with some of the things that he believes. But only some of them, by the way. So we agree on some things, I'm sure. Actors we're artists and we're a little nutty. A lot of us are weird. The idea that Hollywood is a monolith is ridiculous because obviously you've never met the crew, who are very often, they go from super union guys who are super leftist to, to super conservative, MAGA guys, and women who are out and proud lesbians and, it's a crazy spectrum. I'd love to work with Jon Voight at some point. I've heard mixed things in terms of whether or not he's crazy. But my own interactions with him have actually been good. Unfortunately, Trumpism is a cult of victimization. They have got to establish themselves, interestingly, as the most masculine people, but also victims at the same time.
That's a
yep. And so, in the whole Hollywood is against us and I'll never work again in Hollywood because I'm not liberal enough is just another victim pose. Plenty of conservative people get work in Hollywood. A lot of the executives are very conservative. The people who own the corporations are very conservative. Acting like Hollywood, the values that Hollywood tries to portray in its art very often veer to the liberal because the perception is that America's politics are basically mostly liberal. Once gay marriage was legalized, everybody was like, oh, you know what? It's totally okay. And it hasn't destroyed society. And, maybe I still, by the way, think that we're living in the backlash of gay marriage and Barack Obama, that Trump is entirely America just snapping back from having made some remarkable strides during a remarkably short period of time.
I fully agree with that. And I also think that when gay marriage passed, it created a lot of problems for my heterosexual marriage. That was the beginning. That really was problematic for us. That's all we could think about. Also, you told me off air that you have a strong your dream actor to work with is Kevin Sorbo.
What? Yes, I've worked with Kevin Sorbo. He was on Two and a Half Men. They're like I said, I'm not going to denigrate his work. I think he's good. I think he's very funny. There's Adam Baldwin, another very, very staunch right wing guy, terrific performer, terrific actor. There's a lot of Patty Heaton's a friend. She's a very conservative actress and a genius in terms of her comedic work. So the problem is fascism is bad for everybody, and so that's and I think a lot of conservative people in Hollywood are sort of still trying to find a way to not admit that Trump is as bad as he is. I think they're still saying, no, this is the media. They build all this stuff up, He's not that bad, but he just keeps being that bad. He keeps saying these things, we keep taking him at his word because those things happen. He said he wasn't going to accept the election and he didn't. He attempted a coup. That's what happened. That's what an attempted coup looks like in the United States. It happened. And that we still have not come to the terms of that because the Republicans decided we're going to go into massive denial because our party is decimated unless we do. That's what they decided. And that's what they've gone with. And it has worked surprisingly well for them so far.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to insinuate that the entertainment industry is somehow liberal or conservative just because of the point you just mentioned. They'll make money. Anybody will make money however they can. Yeah. And you've seen the rise of Fox News making way more money than every other network. Greg Gutfeld's show making more money, getting more viewers than the other comedy shows combined, I think. So if you wanted to make a movie that was, quote, conservative and you knew it would make money, I'm sure the most liberal producers in the world would be happy to make that money. That's what I'm hearing you're saying. Money is capitalism.
There's interesting. Again, there's you've heard of the studio Angel Studios, which put out the movie about child trafficking. What was that? The Sound of Freedom.
I know all
was
about
their
that guy.
First big hit. And their whole thing is, their whole thing is, we're going to service an audience, the religious right audience, in a way that hasn't happened yet. And they get nothing but respect from Hollywood. Hollywood is like, yes, you guys found an audience that works for you. Good for you. They have been welcomed into the business. And they're making more and more sort of wider. They're trying to sort of start from their religious right base and widen it out a bit as they make these movies. They've got a new movie about Bonhoeffer, one of the people who was trying to assassinate Hitler during World War II. The business respects making stuff that finds an audience. Right. And even they, by the way, even this studio goes from a position of we're victims. We were kept out of the business and we had to break in, it's like, okay, that's your narrative. Fine.
That movie about, what's the movie? The new movie about Trump. I mean, that movie was found very hard time finding distribution, right? Like the story around that is pretty interesting. It kind of puts this point in clear focus that maybe it's not so liberal if they couldn't make that movie or distribute that movie.
Yeah. And I can see why studios would be a little afraid of it right before an election. It's like, on some level, the showman in me says, yeah, right before an election, that's when you do it,
The Apprentice.
But it is apparently, even though it is what I have heard is it's actually a terrific movie. That is actually a very well made, interesting movie. But even so, it is underperforming at the box office because the people who already feel that way about Trump they already know, they already know that he and Roy Cohn were, that Roy Cohn basically tutored him in the ways of being a total shithead, and that he has mastered it.
That's an understatement because it doesn't describe so many of his motivations and his theories, Roy Cohn, how terrible that he was, and how clearly he's still a huge influence on it. But maybe that movie also didn't do that well because we're so sick of hearing, some of us, get traumatized by just hearing his voice. I don't want to see something else about him. I'm looking to get away from him, not learn more about him. But I definitely want to see that movie.
Yeah, me too. I've heard it's terrific.
How do you explain being I'm going to assume you're wealthy, white, straight guy and supporting Democrats? Because sometimes it's hard for people to understand that. And the vast majority of people who fit in that category, I'll throw myself in that category, are more likely to be conservative. So how are you raised to care about, or maybe even vote against your own interests? I mean, I'm guessing that you would vote for somebody who would raise your taxes, that having you pay more on your taxes because you think it would be better for the rest of the country. So voting against your own bottom line, things like that. I don't know. I'm making a lot of assumptions here. So how do you answer to that when people say, well, why are you, a white, straight, rich guy, voting for liberals? Why are you so liberal, if you will?
Well, interestingly, for me, 2.5 Men.
Guy's got a 3D printer. He's not poor.
I'm not poor. No, 2.5 Men changed so many things for me. It made me, it's an amount of wealth that I could never have imagined having. I never thought that this would happen to me. But what I realized was I won the lottery, because the odds against somebody hitting in that kind of a show in that particular way are so tiny. They're infinitesimally small. They are like the lottery. And I absolutely had a certain amount of skill. I was in the right place at the right time, whatever. But I realized I won the lottery, and that people way more talented than me, who worked even harder than me, got less opportunities and never hit this thing. And it made me go, oh my God, this system is so fucking arbitrary. And you shouldn't have to win the lottery in order to live and survive and not have to worry about you losing the place you live every day, So it was that. And I also was doing was working on a podcast called Undisclosed, which was about wrongful convictions. And it was a remarkable experience because the investigators who were working on it, Rabia Chowdhury and Susan Simpson and Colin Miller, once you start looking into how wrongful convictions happen, you start to see, okay, there's some ways that this society is just so unfair. Yep. And it's such a cold splash of water in your face that it made me go, okay, we have an obligation to try and create a society where that treats its citizens more equally. And and there's still stuff that happens every now and then, like when the Watchmen, the first season of The Watchmen came out, and it's a terrific show, but it had the whole thing about the Tulsa race massacre. Yep. Now, I had not ever heard of it, and I'm a fairly well-educated guy. I read a lot of history. I love history. I was aware of Rosewood. I was aware of things of that nature. But this was a huge, horrifying incident in American history that had a huge influence on African-American culture that I was utterly unaware of. And I go, okay, so how I've interpreted history has pushed a whole bunch of shit to the margins, and I have to go back and look and really try and understand that. And so that's where I came from politically, and understanding that the Democrats were really dedicated at trying to make things more just for everybody. Because the idea of social justice is a little scary, because it's like, well, it's justice by what measure? Is it just monetary? Is it social power? Is it having independence? What? So I can see why people are nervous about the idea of social justice. I get it, because it's a nebulous idea. But so is freedom. Freedom is a nebulous idea as well.
Yeah, but when explained and unpacked, it has a lot more understanding. But it has to be. It sounds you're a humble and curious person, and always have been, which is why when you discover these things about history, I remember reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow was the thing for me. That book, I was like, I knew shit was bad, but I didn't know about mass incarceration. I didn't know that police departments could just take your stuff and hold on to it, and including your own money. It's just so many things that I learned, and now they don't want to teach them, Jon Cryer. They don't want to teach that history.
Yes, because that's being too woke.
What do you think of that word and the way that's we're being hammered with it? Woke Jon Cryer, always crying, Mr. John Woker.
I'm proudly woke. That's been in the African American community for decades. Huge
compliment when you got it.
I don't want to. What people don't like about the term woke is it implies intellectual superiority.
Right. Well
like I'm smarter than you. I actually looked into this, and you're an idiot and a racist if you don't get this. And it's not that. It's not you're an idiot or a racist. It's that like I didn't know about redlining. I didn't know about I didn't understand that you can say, okay, we've had the civil rights movement, and now the laws are off the books that were specifically racist. Great. Even though felon disenfranchisement still exists in some places, which were specifically racist, by the way. The idea that making felons not have the right to vote was like 100% racist. They literally said it. We're making this law so that black people can't vote. Yeah,
they said it.
But at any rate,
not only that, just the Voting Rights Act is, I think, probably the most. I hear what you're saying, that these laws aren't so much on the books, except voter ID is racist, and gutting the Voting Rights Act is the most racist of all the laws, because as soon as they did that, they did racist shit again, John.
Yes, exactly. Well, but again, you don't. Like I said, okay, there was redlining, but they don't do that anymore. Right. So everything's fair now, right? Except that no, the way that generational wealth gets passed is from houses. If redlining kept all your ancestors from buying a house, you don't have anything to give your kids, Yeah. So how do you fix that? That the system was doing this for centuries. You can't say, okay, now it's an even playing field. Everything's fine now. It just requires that you forget way too much.
How often do you come across Trump supporters in these last couple of weeks before the election? What are you doing to try to convince people, to help people understand the consequences? The answer to any of those questions, John?
Well, I try mostly on social media. I try to have good faith arguments with Trump supporters, and occasionally you run into them. Yeah. By the way, they're not geographically. It's not just Tennessee.
Oh, no.
You'll find them in New Jersey.
Sure.
They've like I grew up in New York City, Staten Island, woo, Long Island.
I have a guy that lives under my desk. Michael, get up here and talk to Jon Cryer.
But I try to have good faith arguments and not be super condescending. Because again. We all have our information silos. Yeah. None of us has a perfect information set. I have people in my family who are Trump supporters, and I try to say, understand, I love you. I trust you. I don't think you're dumb or uninformed or anything like that. These are the things I'm concerned about. And I ask them, hey, what are you concerned about? Like right now, the rhetoric that Trump has said about mass deportations and about using the military against his political opponents is deeply concerning, is 100% Hitler rhetoric. I would ask Trump supporters, hey, is there anything that concerns you about like a Harris Walls thing? Is there anything that feels like it would endanger your family? See, I'm on the other side of things politically from Trump, and he has now threatened to use the military against me. So I'm worried about my family. Are you worried about your family?
I think they would say letting immigrant murderers in to murder my family.
Except that obviously immigrants and even undocumented immigrants commit crimes at a much lower rate than.
Yeah, but if there's one bad one that gets let in.
Again, if you're worried about crime, let's deport all the native-born Americans. if that's what you're the most worried about, if they're worried about prices, well, okay, you don't think his tariffs and his trade war and his throwing out 11 million of the workers who build things and make things and get your food, you think anything that might be an issue, that might cause some more inflation?
Those are all perfect arguments. You're obviously a really smart guy. I've known that for a long time, since I first met you and started following you on social media, of course. I wonder how often these good faith arguments, someone, I guess on Twitter, says, oh my God, I just was arguing with Jon Cryer. He was pretty cool. He heard me out.
I have no idea. I really don't, because so much of it is trolling and so much of it is just, they're trying to get. But, I don't know if I have changed anybody's mind. I hope so. I've tried to constantly be respectful and act as though they're arguing in good faith, even when they're not, by the way, when I know they're not. I try to basically I'm a fighting sponge. I can absorb whatever rhetorical blows you're going to do, and I'm still going to be here, and I'm still going to say, hey, he attempted a coup on January 6th. And that is the most un-American thing you can possibly do. So,
well, you're doing it. You're doing such value. You really are doing great work. I get fired up by your tweets and the things that you share of others. I love following you on social media. I'm super grateful that you agreed to talk to me again. This is really fun. I'm going to play the trailer now of this new podcast that you're producing, which is really important and exciting. Drops November 6th, and I'll play what you said a little bit about it. But do you want to say anything else before we go about this cool new project you're working on, which is very chilling and moving and important?
Well, this story just fell in my lap, and I've been working on it for a couple of years. And the woman who wrote it, a woman named Suzanne Rico, has done an amazing job. And it's just incredibly brave piece of work to do, especially now. And I'm thinking that a story about a family witnessing fascism falling in its country is hopefully not what we're going to be going through, since hopefully it will not be relevant, but we'll see. It's premiering November 6th.
Congratulations on that, on your whole career, and mostly on getting the great opportunity to talk to me again. It must be a really huge thing for you, Jon.
What a pleasure.
I know you were super nervous.
I was.
So good, man. I'll talk to you again soon. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah, there he goes. How about it? Did you like it? Jon Cryer. That was really fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And now let's listen to that preview I promised you. This is an audio preview of this new podcast that Jon is producing for Wondery Plus. It's called The Man Who Calculated Death. Comes out on November 7th. Here it is.
It's for you to come home, Mom.
This is a story that begins with a dying wish.
One thing I would like you to do.
My mother's last request that my sister and I finish writing the memoir she'd started about her German childhood, when her city burned and her father designed a secret superweapon for Adolf Hitler.
Deutschland, Sieg heim!
My grandfather, a man named Robert Lusser, headed the Nazi project to build the world's first cruise missile, which terrorized millions, ripped his family apart, and left a legacy that dogged my mother like a curse.
I think Mom often felt like she suffered, that's what she deserved. Because her dad was a Nazi scientist. And see what happened to the family?
My mom always seemed to be haunted by a question that was shrouded in time. Who bombed a remote farmhouse at the end of the war and killed her mother? And why?
She had some secrets. Mom had some secrets.
She did.
All we have to go on is the Dusty family legend that the attack was British revenge for my grandfather's flying bomb.
My experience, even with secret projects, is nothing stays secret forever.
The odyssey to finish the twisted story our mom ran out of time to tell takes us deep inside our own ancestry, to the dark intersection where family history and world history collide.
It was something even a nightmare cannot repeat.
I'm Suzanne Rico. Join my sister and me as we search for the truth behind our grandfather's work, solve the mystery of our grandmother's death, and for the first time, face the ghosts of our past.
Jeez, who is he?
Listen to The Man Who Calculated Death exclusively with Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
All right, check it out. And that is all I've got for you here on the weekend special. I look forward to talking to you on Monday. It looks like I'll have Tim Wise joining me for that show and much more. Who do you want to hear from in the final days before the election? I'd love to hear from you. I've reached out to Peter Coyote. I think we're going to make that happen, which is exciting, but I'm not sure if it'll happen before or after the election. So either way, it'll be great to get him back on. A lot of you have been asking for him. Who else? Who else would you like to hear? Let me know. Have a great weekend. Love you guys. Jon Carroll taking us out, as always.
When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think your driving wheels been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know us right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. We got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand